Lila sat cross-legged on the worn carpet of her tiny living room, carefully folding the edges of the brightly colored wrapping paper around the small bundle in her hands. The gift itself was modest: a notebook with a floral cover, a set of inexpensive crayons, and a bracelet she had painstakingly braided the night before. She tied it with a thin ribbon, double knotting it, as if the effort could somehow make the contents feel grander. Her daughter, Emma, lay on the floor beside her, humming a tune she had learned at school. The little girl's eyes were wide with excitement, glittering like sunlight on a calm lake. "Is it ready, Mom?" Emma asked, bouncing slightly on her knees. Lila forced a smile and nodded, though her heart thudded painfully in her chest. "Yes, honey, all ready," she said softly, placing the gift in front of Emma. A pang of guilt twisted inside Lila. She had promised herself she would make birthdays magical, even on a shoestring budget, but she couldn't deny the ache of inadequacy. Emma had asked for a Barbie weeks ago, her small hands mimicking a doll's graceful gestures. Lila had smiled and hugged her tightly, but later, alone in the quiet of their apartment, she whispered the truth to herself: "I can't afford a Barbie this year." The words felt heavy, like stones pressed against her chest. Emma picked up the gift, her fingers brushing the ribbon. "It's beautiful, Mom," she said softly, her voice innocent and full of trust. Lila felt a lump in her throat. How could such a tiny human see so much joy in something so simple? "I hope you like it, sweetheart," she replied, her voice shaking slightly. Emma tore the wrapping with delight, her giggles echoing off the bare walls. Each little gasp of wonder pierced Lila's heart. Pride and guilt wove themselves together in an almost unbearable knot. Lila watched as Emma admired the handmade bracelet, traced the floral cover of the notebook, and carefully examined the crayons. For a moment, all the bills, the overdue rent, and the unpaid electricity hung forgotten. In her daughter's bright, trusting eyes, Lila saw a world full of hope, a world she wanted to keep safe, no matter the cost. Sighing quietly, Lila hugged Emma close. "Happy birthday, my little star," she whispered, kissing her forehead. Emma's laughter, unburdened and pure, wrapped around Lila like a warm blanket. And for just a moment, the world felt gentle, and the impossible seemed a little less heavy. The morning sun streamed through the narrow windows of the small cafe downstairs, painting golden streaks across the worn wooden tables. Lila carried Emma's backpack in one hand and a small shopping bag in the other, trying to keep her balance as she ordered a coffee. Her mind was already racing through the day's errands: groceries, the bakery for the birthday cake, and a quick stop at the pharmacy. Each task felt like a mountain she had to climb, and the weight of her worries pressed heavily on her shoulders. As she turned, the coffee cup wobbled and spilled over the edge, splattering onto her sleeve and the floor. "Oh no," she muttered, panic rising in her chest. The aroma of burnt espresso mixed with embarrassment, making her cheeks flush red. She frantically grabbed napkins, trying to mop up the mess, her hands shaking slightly. "Here, let me help," a calm, deep voice said. Lila looked up and froze. A man in a tailored suit, with neat hair and an air of quiet authority, was crouched beside her, carefully picking up the scattered napkins and handing them to her. There was no judgment in his eyes, only a patient, kind concern that somehow made her heart slow down a notch. "I'm so clumsy," Lila whispered, avoiding his gaze. "You're fine," he replied gently, his tone warm. "Coffee spills happen to the best of us. Are you okay?" She nodded, feeling slightly foolish. Yes, thank you." The man straightened up and offered a small, polite smile. "I'm Mark," he said. "Do you come here often?" Lila shook her head. "Not really. Just running errands. Birthday stuff for my daughter." The words slipped out before she could stop them. There was a trace of hesitation, a quiet vulnerability in her voice, as though admitting it made her fragile reality real. Mark tilted his head slightly, as if listening more with his heart than his ears. "Tell me about her," he said softly. "She must be special to make you run around so much." Lila blinked, surprised. She had expected small talk, maybe a polite nod, but not this gentle curiosity. For a moment, the chaos of the cafe faded, the clinking cups, the murmuring customers, the relentless march of her responsibilities. In its place was a rare, quiet attention, a presence that somehow acknowledged her struggles without pity. As she spoke about Emma, her laughter, her tiny quirks, her love of drawing. Mark listened intently. He didn't interrupt or rush her. He simply let her words hang in the air, heavy with emotion, until Lila realized she was speaking freely, without fear, without judgment. For the first time that morning, Lila felt seen. And in that fleeting connection, she couldn't help but wonder if the universe sometimes arranged moments exactly when they were needed most. The cafe had quieted down slightly, the morning rush giving way to a gentle hum of conversation. Lila sat across from Mark, her hands wrapped around the warm coffee cup as if it were an anchor to steady her nerves. She had been talking about Emma's favorite songs, the drawings she proudly hung on their tiny apartment walls, and the little ways her daughter brightened Lila's life. Yet, beneath her words, a knot of worry tightened in her chest. Mark leaned forward, resting his elbows lightly on the table, listening with genuine curiosity in his eyes. There was a patience in him that made Lila feel, for the first time in a long while, that it was safe to speak the truth. She hesitated, taking a deep breath, the weight of the secret she'd carried pressing down on her. She began quietly, almost a whisper, her gaze dropping to the tabletop. I can't afford a Barbie for her birthday this year. The words hung in the air between them. She expected a polite nod, maybe even a quick shrug of sympathy, but Mark didn't react that way. He just leaned back, his expression softening, a small, understanding smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Tell me more about her, he said gently. What does she love? What makes her laugh? Lila's eyes met his, and for a moment, the embarrassment that had been choking her eased. She talked about Emma's boundless imagination, her habit of making stories out of nothing, her excitement over small surprises, and the way she twirled in their cramped living room pretending to be a ballerina. She described the little rituals, the bedtime songs, the way Emma insisted on carrying her favorite notebook everywhere, the way she hugged her stuffed animals with an almost adult tenderness. Mark listened quietly, nodding, never interrupting, his gaze steady and warm. It was as if he were soaking in every detail, not as a stranger, but as someone who understood the heart of a mother's love. Lila felt the tension in her shoulders loosen slightly. I wish I could give her everything she dreams of, Lila admitted, her voice trembling. But some days, just keeping her happy it's all I can do. Mark reached across the table, resting a hand gently near hers, not touching, just close enough that she could feel the sincerity of the gesture. I think she deserves a birthday she'll never forget, he said softly. And you deserve to see her smile without carrying all the worry alone. For the first time that morning, Lila felt hope stir, a fragile, delicate thing, but real. She hadn't expected kindness, she hadn't expected understanding, and yet, here it was, offered freely, as if the universe had finally paused to give her a moment of relief. The afternoon sunlight streamed through the small living room window, casting warm patterns on the faded carpet. Lila carried Emma's birthday cake carefully from the kitchen, trying not to spill a single sprinkle. The apartment, though modest and cluttered with bills and everyday chaos, was filled with the quiet anticipation of a special day. Emma sat cross-legged on the floor, her eyes wide, her hands fidgeting with excitement. Mom, is it time? She asked, her voice trembling with the kind of impatient joy only a child could feel. Lila knelt beside her, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. Almost, sweetheart, I have one more surprise for you, she whispered, her own heart pounding. She reached into her bag and pulled out the small envelope Mark had handed her that morning. She hadn't dared open it in public, her pride had kept her from doing so, but now, alone with Emma, she felt a mixture of nervousness and gratitude. Mom, what is it? Emma asked, peering over her shoulder. Lila swallowed hard. Just open it, she said softly. Emma tore the envelope, her small hands shaking. Inside was a gift card, but not just any gift card, enough to get the Barbie she had dreamed of, and perhaps even a few extras. Lila watched as her daughter's eyes widened, her small mouth falling open in disbelief. You got me a Barbie, Emma squealed, jumping up and hugging her mother tightly. Mom, this is the best birthday ever. Tears welled up in Lila's eyes. She held Emma close, feeling the weight of exhaustion, worry, and sacrifice finally give way to pure joy. Yes, honey, it's for you, she whispered, her voice breaking. You deserve it, all of it. Emma's laughter rang through the apartment, bouncing off the walls like music. She clutched the gift card, then spun around and hugged Lila again, her small arms squeezing with all the love a child could muster. For a moment, the bills, the overdue rent, and the endless worries melted away. The world outside might still be harsh and unkind, but in this tiny apartment, joy had blossomed, unexpected and beautiful. Lila closed her eyes for a brief moment, letting the tears fall freely. She whispered a quiet, "Thank you," into the sunlight streaming through the window, knowing it was meant not just for Mark, but for the rare, unlooked-for kindness that sometimes appeared in life when it was needed most. Later, as Emma played with her new Barbie, creating elaborate stories and adventures in the living room, Lila watched from the couch. Her heart swelled with a profound mix of pride, relief, and gratitude. She realized that magic didn't always come in grand gestures, but sometimes in small, unexpected kindnesses that made the impossible feel real. And for that day, at least, the world had felt perfectly, wonderfully kind.